introductions. I'm
Yeah,
Kevin Bell and Brent Laird. We've been doing this for 5 or 6 months now, and today we're talking about name, image, and likeness. I have to say, this is one of the most enjoyable parts of my entire month. I enjoy jumping on this with Brent and talking about different things, tax issues, and I'm especially excited to talk about this one as it hit home a little bit for me in that in college I was a collegiate athlete, track athlete at Idaho State University. So understanding or where these athletes are coming from, it hits home a little bit for me. So yeah. So Brent, do you want to give us that history that we talked about?
sure. Yeah. So my name is Brent Laird, and I was not a collegiate track athlete. My brother was, so I feel like I'm close. It's still in the family. He was a track athlete in North Carolina, and I know for him, he had a lot on his plate academically, as well as trying to do the athletic side. So we empathize with once again adding kind of another stool to the layer, to stand on there, another leg to stand on with the business side of things now as well. Name, image, and likeness is really kind of spurred out of the concept of the pay to play athletes that we've been looking at. So, college athletes have long since wanted to be paid. We've seen a few different court cases over the years. The Ed O'Bannon trial is one of the ones that really kind of brought a lot of the issue to light. We've seen other cases with Sam Keller and the NCAA football. So it's one of those things where Bannon, they actually prevailed over the NCAA in the case. And so really opened the door for a lot of these things. And then the movement has really started a lot with the state legislators saying it was okay to pay athletes as well. You saw California open up kind of the docket saying it's okay to pay athletes. And then other states kind of jumped on board. So paying athletes is, what was that, Kevin?
I was going to say, I'm jumping in there and remind you about Jeremy Bloom. He was at the football player at University of Colorado, the wide receiver, and also was an Olympian in the 2002 and 2006 downhill skiing. And he took the NCAA to court and lost. And so it's interesting to how long it took for the courts and everyone to warm up to the idea of allowing allowing the opportunity to pay these athletes to do for their name, image, and likeness. And it just didn't happen overnight.
No, and it didn't. I don't think it quite happened the way people thought they would either. I think, people expected universities to pay these guys directly, and realistically, they're able to make money off their name, image, and likeness, which is more of a, for an Instagram influencer model than it is really a, pay based on performance model. You're paid more based on your, how popular you are than necessarily what your on-field accomplishments are. And so I think it's a lot different than what people expected would initially come out of all this stuff. Is that, it's like, you can make money off it, but you can make money off your brand. And it's not that you're making money off necessarily, what you do. And so I do think it's kind of an interesting hybrid that we've gotten to.
I was going to say, I agree. The hybridness of it is interesting, but also I think there's a few other unintended results in terms of who's benefiting. I know I remember you shared with me an interesting statistic about if you look at the dollar figures of what athletes are making, the average, if I remember correctly, the average dollar figure was like $600 or something less than that per athlete. And you have just a wide range of some athletes that are doing really, really well. Like we were talking about LeBron's son, making $5 million. There's other athletes that are, a couple $100 maybe. So.
Yeah, no, it's very fascinating to see some in the 7-figure range and some more in, the $1,000 kind of range. So it spans a wide variety. I think I didn't anticipate high schools getting into it so quickly. High school, one of the big storylines earlier in the year was you had Quinn Ewers, who was a Texas high school prospect who graduated early out of high school to go enroll at Ohio State so that he could make money off an NIL deal. And because Texas wasn't allowing NIL deals at that time. And now you've seen Oregon open up to NIL deals for high school kids. And so not only is it a college issue, it's quickly becoming a high school issue as well. And it really adds there are a lot of interesting dynamics to either a locker room setting for one, but also I think from a taxation perspective, which is kind of what we're here to talk about a little bit today, is just how, what does that open up to, and what does that look like for these athletes as they're now no longer just student athletes. We call them business athletes. It's been kind of the term Kevin's coined. I think makes a lot of sense.
I think one of the things to remember is, in terms of like the NBA and the professional leagues, that those leagues, for the rookies that come in, they have various classes about finances and about how to handle your money and stuff like that. Do all the athletes follow them? No, but they realized that they need to teach their professional athletes these types of skills. And like you mentioned, Brent, the tax issues, but it's also the financial issues that concerns me even more for these young kids, these young athletes, even in high school and in college, that, hey, where are they getting their financial advice from? Where are they getting their direction from? Because as we've seen multiple times in the media, how athletes have been destroyed by excess money. But then we have also seen some really, really good stories of athletes taking their earnings and turning them into a lot of really good investments, and branching out beyond their brand into business ventures, into business deals. And it's just such a turning point for these athletes. It's just to get them on the right road to start with.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting. Financial literacy that you're talking about is a huge component of things. Effectively, it's turned all these athletes into entrepreneurs. They're all running their own business, and I think that's an educational opportunity that extends far beyond just trying to make money off the brand. It's another way that they can learn how to run a business, and it's a different educational aspect. So I think it really is a cool thing for them from a learning perspective. Having the chance to run your own business at 17, 18, 19 is very unique. So I think it's a really fascinating concept. I think what attracted us the most is, we're sports guys, we like that kind of stuff, but also for us, we saw the pitfalls, right? And it was that, it's different being self-employed than it is just being a regular W-2 employee. And with the compensation structure that how these people will be paid, they're looking at being self-employed, and that's very different. I think for me, my first job I had, I was boxing files up in my dad's office, which was a lot of fun, scanning, digitizing, law files and juggling, which ones could be burned, which ones could be shredded, moving that stuff all around the storage house was a lot of fun. But I remember thinking, all right, I worked 10 hours for $10, I'm getting $100. And then when I got my paycheck later, I was like, hey, why did I get $60? What happened here? And there's that kind of aha moment, like, oh, that's what taxes are. We've withheld your Social Security, your Medicare, your federal withholdings, your state withholdings, all these things that, no one really talks about. But it's like, oh no, yeah, you just make 60 cents on the dollar. And, that was a unique learning moment. You file your tax returns into the year, maybe you get money back, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it's a different system when you're self-employed, when the person just hands you $100 and you have to deal with the taxes on the back end. No one's necessarily ready for that unless someone's told them, and so for us, it was like, wow, these athletes could make a bunch of money, but then they could spend it all and then really have a hard time in April when it rolls around. And so I think you and I were like, well, we got to educate those guys on that, what's coming down the pipe, because that would be a really bad situation. And then also part of being self-employed is paying estimated tax payments. So here's your first quarter tax payment as well as your tax due, all on April 15th. So I think that was one of the things that kind of attracted us to it, but that's not the real pitfall, but that's just the one that stands out the fastest to me, with just kind of, hey, here's the keys, go run a new business and good luck out there. I know you thought of a few other things, Kevin, that come to your mind probably right now.
And well, the one as you're talking about paying, in terms of self-employment and such, I totally agree. The self-employment aspect of being an entrepreneur is, I think, going to catch some of these athletes off guard, like how much in actual taxes they will actually need to pay. And I know we've talked about this. Just think about a basketball player at a university, men's or women's, it doesn't matter. and they are successful in with NIL deals, and they're going into their game time. You know, if you're in the, you know, the bracket and such, and so they don't want to be dealing with taxes now when they should be dealing with basketball games. And so that kind of leads also into another discussion we had about the trusted advisors and having somebody on your team, and in terms that's going to help them through that. It's so interesting to me. And not only that, but you want to keep these athletes, you want to keep them current with their taxes, like you're saying, paying their taxes, because I could see it coming back around and harming the university itself in the sense of just a bad image. If you have a bunch of athletes who made a lot of money, but for whatever reason, they didn't pay their taxes, you know, and the IRS will always come. They'll find out. They'll always come. So that's another kind of thing that went through my mind. And another topic, another issue that we talked about is the cashless income. You know, and that you get those some of these athletes, I'm sure, getting paid with, I say paid air quotes, with benefits in the sense of, I don't know, maybe a car, maybe, you know, free stuff. No, I won't say free, but different things that they can carry around and show the logo of whatever product they're pushing. And the company might issue them a 1099 saying, hey, we gave you this product and you were supposed to sell it. And it's worth, we'll call it $600. And now you have $600 of income and you didn't really receive any cash for it. So the cashless income can also be an issue with some of these athletes. And again, it's educating them. It's getting them set up. And I don't know if it's kind of going on, I guess, on another direction, but in terms of setting these kids up is also using this money wisely, setting up the path for retirement and retirement plans. And, you know, there's just so many opportunities for them to use this money wisely. I get it. Not all of them have had this kind of money in the past, but it's getting that team together around them and helping them be successful in that.
Yeah. I think you're right. You know, I think planning for the future is a huge part of it. I think, you know, starting up a business, you always kind of have a team of professionals that you're putting things together around. And, you know, as athletes, you're usually on teams, you know, you kind of understand that concept, but, you know, having the right attorney is a huge deal, you know, especially when we're talking about, you know, what contractual rights am I signing in some of these contracts? You know, are these things that are going through the scope when I'm a college athlete, or is this a term that's longer than I realize? You know, I know we've got an attorney on the call here who's probably thinking, yeah, there's lots of issues that you could be running into. So, you know, having a competent attorney to help you, you know, if you're going to go the LLC route, or if you're going to have, you know, a lot more things going on, you know, we've seen some athletes launch cryptocurrencies, launch foundations, you know, having the people in place to help you form those things and start those things is huge to be successful at that, you know, as well as having a banker, you know, insurance agents, investment advisors, you know, there's agents, PR people. There's a lot of people that will suddenly become part of your team the bigger it gets, right? You know, and maybe you don't need a full team right off the bat, but there is a need for a lot of those services. And, you know, having the right advisors really makes your life a little easier. And, you know, it's hard when you're coming straight out of the chute and you don't know what you're doing to know who those people are. So, you know, finding a trusted advisor, someone that's looking out for you, is a really big deal.
Yeah. And so, Brent, who would you say is the first trusted advisor they should get?
I mean, obviously CPA suit.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
But I think an attorney is not far behind. You know,
I agree.
Especially with negotiating these deals. You know, that I know the universities step in. You know, I think your compliance officer is a huge part of your team as well. You know, I don't think you would do anything without compliance, signing off on things, and especially for some of the different pitfalls you can run into. As an international athlete, you know, Kevin, you wrote an article on this that, you know, you could be jeopardizing your student visa if you're doing things incorrectly. And, you know, while making money is great, losing a student visa is not a great thing. So,
that's just kind of one of the interesting fallouts of this, is that I'm not going to say how quickly this came to pass, but that a lot of people didn't think through the international students and the student visa issue, and that this whole subset of student athletes really cannot profit from their name, image, and likeness because of this issue with student visas, and they're limited in the type of work they can do and how much work they can do, and they got to get approval for all of that. But again, that's kind of a side comment anyway. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it certainly puts them at a competitive disadvantage. And I think there's a lot more international students than people realize, especially in track and field, some of the non-revenue sports that maybe you're not as aware of. So certainly a lot of potential issues there, that could come out.
It's not an issue that's going to get resolved quickly. I mean, this is not a state issue. It's an issue that has to be addressed by DHS or Congress, which is, again, very fascinating because you think about how the whole NIL came about. That was because the states pushed it and pushed it harder. So I feel bad for these international athletes.
Yeah, there's nothing that's going to happen quick, but it's something they need to be aware of. More than anything else, because you don't want to put yourself in a bad spot between, it's, you don't want to make $1,000 and then lose your student visa. That would not be a disproportionate thing. As we're, you and I here, Kevin, are in the throes of tax season a little bit. What advice would you give to student athletes that are like, hey, I'm realizing now that I have to pay taxes. What are the things I should have done? Can you do my taxes? What would be your thoughts around that a little bit?
So the first thing, and I think we both agree on this, is find an accountant, a CPA, somebody who does taxes. And we're coming towards the end of February. And if you don't have somebody already lined up, good luck in trying to find somebody. I'm not saying they're not out there, but try to find someone as soon as possible, because people are CPAs and enroll agents and everyone are getting filled up very quickly. So that's the first thing. And in most cases, what I can imagine, I could see people see some of these kids wanting just to go to their CPAs that their mom and dad uses. Whether or not that's the right fit, I'm not saying it is or isn't, but I think that's where a lot of them are going to go. But they should really find a CPA that fits with them and what they're trying to do. So that's the first thing I would suggest, is finding somebody a CPA. The next thing is, like I said, we do tax returns. What we really like is when people bring in clean books and records. That means they have all their stuff in a row, all their ducks in a row, and it makes their taxes so much easier to do, so much easier to consult with them, so much easier to help them along. So the second one would be to make sure you had all, all your information ready to go. Understandable, they're going to be new this year in terms of, first time to going through this, and there might be a shoebox. I understand that. Maybe in the future we can move away from the shoebox, but that would be the next thing, is making sure you have all your information and all your ducks in a row to help your CPA. And I think the third one is just have realistic expectations. I've talked to numerous people about taxes, and you would not be surprised at the crazy ideas that I hear about taxes. Like, oh, we can do this or that. No, you can't really do that. So have realistic expectations on what's deductible, what's not deductible, and that if you made a lot of money, you're going to be paying taxes. I think setting expectations is also pretty important. Those are my top three. Right.
Yeah, I know we put a little article together on our website of kind of the top 5 things that kind of athletes should be doing. We put it out in November, about things that you should be doing, about tracking your income, tracking what kind of expenses, and listing a few examples. It's probably not going to be an expense-heavy industry. You're probably only going to have like cell phone, internet, maybe some travel, maybe some meals, consulting fees, attorney fees, that kind of stuff. So there probably isn't a whole lot of things to track, but you are going to have income from potentially different areas. You could be in a situation where, you could live in, Colorado, but you're doing most of your work in Oregon. So maybe you have some deals where you're getting compensated back in Colorado, some in Oregon. Maybe you go to the Rose Bowl and you do an appearance fee down there, get income from California. So you could be in a situation you're filing multiple states. So it's really important to track kind of where you earned your income along the way as well. It's a lot more complex, honestly, for a college athlete than it is for an NBA professional, because their teams will keep track of that kind of stuff for them. So it's a really, but I think, keeping track of stuff is the thing that we're, recommending the most, and also making sure that you've had um, some money stashed away. Hopefully you're keeping 30 to 40% back, depending on how much you're making, so that you're kind of ready for what comes in April. I would throw out that, yeah, with CPAs being busy right now, you might not be able to get someone in right away, but they might be able to file an extension for you.
Yeah.
An extension is just extends the return out for 6 months, so it makes the deadline go from April 15th to October 15th. A lot of people aren't familiar with what an extension is. The tax is still due April 15th, and if you don't pay it, then you pay interest and penalties outside. So, we can kind of put together an estimate for you, make an extension payment, still get the return done. So, if you are kind of late to the game, we still have some optionality there for you if we can extend returns and work through those as well. Just kind of throwing that out there for anyone that's listening that's like, oh man, I didn't even think about it. I know I talked to a coach last week and he was like, yeah, my position group here hasn't even thought about it. I brought it up with them and they kind of eyes rolled over. So, I know that there's going to be this realization moment here soon, probably for a lot of these athletes, especially those who have been more successful at it, that this is coming. So we are here to help out in the event that you need help. So just throwing that out there, or to help point you at someone that can if we're too busy.
I might throw out there too, Brent, that's a good comment about the extensions. And in those cases where maybe an athlete wasn't paying as close of attention to their cash flow, and maybe doesn't have quite the resources available to pay whatever taxes that are due, you still should, the recommendation is to still file a return, whether that be timely or whether that be extended. And then address the cash flow issue later on. I mean, you might not be able to pay everything right at April 15th, but you can pay later. There will be some penalties and interest, but it's better than not paying at all. And then kind of coming down to the next suggestion, if it is bad enough that you don't have any cash flow to help pay for these taxes, there's other alternatives, and you can actually set up an installment payment plan with the IRS. And in order to pay that over time. Now, that does require, again, some penalties and interest that go along, but it's better to do that and put the IRS on notice than not doing anything at all. Not doing anything at all is a bad thing. So, yeah, if they find out, then they'll come down on you harder than if you came forward at first. So, I guess I would throw that out there too as options in those cases where somebody hasn't planned sufficiently for it. So, yeah. But the other thing in terms of being upfront with the IRS, in terms of it's just something to remember: the IRS is the greatest collection agency there is, the greatest, hands down. They will come and get their money some way, somehow. So if an athlete's listening to this and they have a friend that's telling them, don't worry about paying your taxes, all I can say is please don't listen to that friend, because you do need to pay your taxes. The IRS will figure it out. They'll come and find you. The greatest example I like is that the IRS did bring down Al Capone. That's one of the reasons he was caught, was on charges of tax evasion. And so if they can bring down Al Capone, don't think you're bigger than him. So throw that out there.
Not trying to scare people.
Yeah, I'm not trying to scare people. Well, I'm trying to steer them on the straight and narrow. I'm trying to steer them on the straight and narrow. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yes, the IRS can track income, but it's also, I think, there's responsibility. It's Spider-Man, right? With great power comes great responsibility. Yeah. The responsibility is the taxes you have to pay, right? But there's also a ton of exciting opportunities and different things that you can do. We can structure things to save taxes. We can put things away for retirement. There's ways that we can make it not just about the taxes. And I think as business owners, you can't make it just about the taxes. You got to be successful in what you're doing, and we'll help you deal with the tax side of things afterwards. But, it's about building your brand. It's about connecting with the right people, forming that right team, to be successful. And so I'm super bullish on the industry. I'm super excited to see what opportunities business athletes get going forward. I think we've seen a lot of unique ones. We're in Eugene, Oregon, so we've seen a lot of unique marketplace deals. We just saw I believe it was the Flying Feather collection of NFTs that were released to help support some University of Oregon athletes, where there was an NFT auction. They auctioned off NFTs that had customized sneakers that came with them. And the athletes got, I believe, a 70% kickback was kind of, through the athletes that participated. So it's an industry where there's, I think, even more creativity coming with ways for athletes to be able to participate in things and really become entrepreneurs. And I think, having that knowledge base and having those learning lessons is really an exciting opportunity, and something I can't imagine even dealing with my first year of college. I don't know about you, Kevin.
Yeah, I am bullish, just as you are. I'm bullish on this for them. And, there's just so many different ways in which they can capitalize on this, on their image and likeness. And yeah, my first year of college, I'm not sure I could have done it. With the schoolwork and being an athlete at the same time. Being an athlete just takes so much time. But the creativity that these athletes have, the confidence that they have, that's another thing that translates over from the athletics, is the confidence in which they have to be creative and to go out and get some of these deals. I think is pretty cool, and is inspiring, in order to put their brand out there. That also is, I think, very inspiring thing for me.
And we're really still in the first quarter of this. It's going to be an evolving industry. You're seeing different college places do different things. You've seen BYU with the walk-ons. It's not a Cliff Bar. I'm forgetting the name of the bar right now. Where effectively they paid for all the walk-ons tuitions at BYU, which is a little different because the tuition's not as expensive. But you've seen, Texas's offensive linemen all get a $50,000 deal through one of the private organizations. So you're seeing these different deals come through, and I think the industry as a whole is only going to get bigger, which is only going to create more complexity, more issues there. So I think we're really excited to be kind of part of the first wave of things, and to be able to help out athletes and also universities as they navigate kind of the different issues along with the compliance related to it. So
yeah, in regards to the it's interesting, as you were saying, that one of the things that did come to my mind too is, again, like you just said, is helping the universities, helping them help their athletes. As I mentioned kind of at the beginning of this, that the professional organizations have had their classes, and this is a personal opinion of mine, but I think it's kind of incumbent on the universities themselves to also help provide these type of learning opportunities for their athletes, because as I said, they could have a direct impact on the performance on the court if they have issues off the court. And so, yeah, like you said, we're here to help them and the athletes, and both of them, help them stay compliant in all that they can, so that they can reach their fullest and take it to the next level.
Yeah, and from my experience of being at a few events, speaking at a few universities, it's that it's not forefront, it's not at the top of the mind, that no one's really preaching these financial literacy skills ahead of time. And so we're just I think we all just want to make sure we're able to help out and to be there for these athletes as they go through these changes, because some do come from more affluent backgrounds where they have a family CPA, or they have kind of a background where someone kind of has that business savvy, and others don't come from those same situations. And so you kind of get a very mixed bag of experience levels with some of the financial literacy concepts. So, so that was, I think that's important to both of us, is just educating them to help out. Kevin, did you have any other questions that kind of came into you that?
I did. It's a question for, I think, both of us. Maybe it's a good way to wrap things up here. Is, what is one piece of advice you would give a student athlete who's looking at a NIL deal? If you just forget everything else we talked about, what's one thing that you would advise them? What would you say? I've thought about that for myself, and I thought that was an interesting question. What I'd say? Like,
am I looking at an NIL deal? Is that what?
No. If you were to, if you had an opportunity to mentor somebody with an NIL deal that was getting ready to do an NIL deal or looking at this, what would you, going into this atmosphere, living in this environment?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, like, I'm always thinking the tax side because I'm a tax guy and all that stuff. But I think, the first thing is, does the deal make sense for what I'm trying to do? Is it on brand? And is it going to be something that's going to be profitable for me long term?
Yeah.
I think that's got to go first before any sort of tax decision. It's like, is this a company that I want to be partners with? Is this something that's going to build me up? And I'm not a brand expert or anything like that. That's why I have Amy and people at our office for that. But I think, it's like, yeah, does this deal represent what I want to do and want to be? Is going to help me get to where I want to
go? Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. And one of the things that I thought about, just kind of more over like a big broad picture, is that I'd probably tell them just to make sure they ask a lot of questions, whether that be of the product that somebody's coming to them with, learning more just about the space, just ask questions about, financial advisors, accountants, CPAs, just any kind of questions. Don't be afraid to ask, because that's where you're really going to learn. And not only that, they're going to be able to develop relationships with people and find out people that they like to work with, people they don't like to work with, brands they like, brands they don't like. And so just, be as a little kid, just ask a lot of questions. No stupid questions. That's the way I'll put it. So that would be like my one piece of advice, I guess.
And everybody expects questions, and I think that's what we realize is that a big part of learning is just asking questions, and that's okay.
Yeah. So where can they find us, Brent?
Sure. So our website, kernetstokes.com, has a lot of great resources for athletes and universities. It's Kernet, KERNUTT, Stokes, STOKES.com. You can find kind of information about Kevin and I on our bios and some just kind of resources and articles we've written together. So happy to help educate, answer any questions, help out wherever you guys need us. And appreciate everyone taking the time today to listen to us.
Have a good evening.
See you guys.